More on that. I want to turn now to the cashless welfare card, or the cashless debit card, that's been trialled in some communities now for about 18 months. In fact, in a couple of communities, the government keen to roll this out into others. But Labor today have said no, they're not going to support the further rollout of the cashless debit card at this stage. The Human Resources or Human Services Minister Alan Tudge is with me now. Thanks for your time this afternoon. So you want to roll this out in, is it 2 more communities at the moment, and Labor's saying no. What evidence is there that this is worth rolling out?
Well, we had an independent evaluation which showed that this was working and having considerable positive impact on the ground. 48% of people are gambling less, 48% of people taking fewer drugs, and 41% of people drinking less. And all the anecdotal evidence was that you were having a safer community as a result. Now, I'm very disappointed in the Labor Party for taking this position now, because they know that alcohol is the poison that runs through these places, and yet we have a product, we have an initiative which can potentially get control of this, and yet they're now saying that they're not going to support it.
Just on that independent report you mentioned, it did find some weaknesses in the system where people are still, some are finding a way to get alcohol and tobacco. Are there ways you can close loopholes, tighten things up?
Yeah, we're always looking at that and trying to close every single loophole that gets identified. Some we have managed to do, and inevitably, though, some people will try to get around the system.
One of them was apparently buying gift cards. That you can
yeah, sure. So we're closing that loop, and we're working very closely, actually, with Australia Post and some of the big supermarket chains in relation to that. But, you know, I've always said at every step of the way that we're not going to let perfect get in the way of good. And this is having a demonstrable impact, even if some people are getting around the system on the margins.
Well, Labor, in its statement about this, saying that it does not support the rollout of the card into 2 new proposed sites, the Bundaberg and Goldfields sites, says there's been insufficient consultation with these communities and widespread criticism of the card. How much consultation has there been in those 2 communities, Bundaberg and Goldfields?
Yeah, well, let's take the Goldfields, and let's be clear about this. This is an excuse for the Labor Party to hide their ideological opposition to it. We had 270 consultations in the Goldfields. We've got the support of all of the 5 councils for it. We've got support of other key leaders in the community for this to go ahead. And what's more, we know that the alcohol particularly is causing absolute catastrophic harm in many of these communities. You know, in some places you've got a quarter of kids who are being born effectively brain damaged because of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Now, you know, what is the Labor position if they're not going to support this? How are they going to address the alcohol? How are they going to address the domestic violence, which nearly all is due to alcohol or drugs? If they're not going to support this, which is a product to address this, then they should come out today and say how they're going to do it. Otherwise, they are giving up on those children. They're giving up on those women who are most at harm from the alcohol.
Look, Labor's not opposing the continuation of the program in Ceduna and East Kimberley. I mean, is there a way to ensure there is some bipartisan support around these further communities, a way to, you know, ensure that everyone is consulted?
Oh, this is why I'm so disappointed, because we have had bipartisan support up until this time. I worked very closely with Jenny Macklin when the first tranche of legislation went through. We brought the community leaders out to speak to the Labor Party in the crossbenches. But now, out of nowhere, they've said that they're not going to support these 2 new additional sites, despite the demonstrable need. And particularly in the Goldfields, I'm just so disappointed by that. And, you know, as one of the, when I was out there with the Prime Minister, one of the elders who also happens to be a councillor sort of said to us, she said that, you know, people should look at some of the young children in the eyes who have got FASD, you know, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and tell them that they don't need an initiative like this. Well, I say to the Labor Party, you go out there and speak to that person. Go out there and speak to the children on the ground and see the impact that alcohol has on them.
Is there a way to have an opt-in approach to this in those new communities?
What do you mean by that?
Well, like you know, if you want to do it, you can sign up for it.
We already have that, so it covers all people on income support payments presently. But if you additionally want to opt into it, then you can opt into it. But you can't have nobody's on it unless you choose to go on it. Otherwise, inevitably, you're not going to catch the drinkers. Drinkers don't put their hand up and say, yes, please restrict the alcohol. They just don't do that. But what it does do through this card is it means that most of the welfare dollars are quarantined from being spent on alcohol or on drugs. And that's what's having the impact on the ground. It's not perfect, David. We never said this was going to be perfect, but it is having that impact, and we do want to continue it.
Alan Tudge, appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks, Minister.
Thanks, David.
All right.